Hello YouTube. Today we're going to be continuing to explore exactly how to play the Sicilian defense as black, and we're going to be going into one of the lines that you're going to run into a lot, especially at the sub 2000 level, but you're also going to run into it. There's also some strong players, masters and even grandmasters, that will try this as white, trying to get a position very similar to a Roy Lopez. So if you like content like this and you want to see more of it, please hit that subscribe button and click on your notification icon. So this is what happens after e4, c5, knight f3, and then we're going to play d6. Now, of course, d6 is a move that you're going to be playing if you're interested in playing a modern dragon or if you're interested in playing a Najdorf. So if you're interested in playing a modern dragon or if you're playing a Najdorf, then you can run into this particular idea. You can run into the move bishop to c4. But you're actually going to run into this move, I would say, regardless of which variation you choose to play as black. Even people that play knight c6 will run into bishop c4, and people even that play e6 will run into bishop c4. Of course, against e6 on bishop c4, I would dare say that d5 could probably immediately be played, just gaining a tempo. Now, bishop c4, when it's played by lower level players, they're doing it just because they think that it's developing a piece, that they're just going to play against c5 the same way they play against e5, that they're just going to develop a piece and that they're going to finish their development with like d3, they're going to castle, and then usually they'll proceed to play some pretty not too great moves after this. They're going to play stuff like knight c3 and bishop g5, which would make sense against an e5 opening, but it doesn't make sense against a Sicilian when the long-term plan in the Sicilian is going to be to extend your queenside pawns. So one of the threats that you're going to have long-term is that once you do get everything developed, you're going to be playing something like knight c6, rook b8, b5, and then this bishop on c4 could even potentially be trapped on the b3 square. So we have to be very cautious about this, that we don't just play the exact same moves against everything. And this is what a lot of people do when they play bishop to c4, is they just try to play the exact same moves against absolutely every single opening. So the first thing that I like to do against this is I like to put a little bit of pressure on the e4 pawn. I like to ask them what they're doing with it. Of course, this is also very consistent. If you're gonna, you can still transpose back into a Najdorf or back into a dragon, and that's really relevant, especially if they play something like knight to c3. They're going to offer up that transposition potential, because now knight c3, you haven't completely taken d4 off of the table yet. So after knight to c3, if you continued with a6 or g6, you can still transpose back into your opening of choice. You can also mechanically prevent them from playing d4 if you want. You can play pawn to e5 and prevent that. But you can still play a classical Sicilian move order, a Najdorf move order with a6, or a dragon move order with g6 here. So all those are still on the table. So normally, like, the more sophisticated players will play pawn to d3, and also some weaker players will play this as well because it fits in with the narrative, so to speak. And then I actually, at this point, once they play d3, they've basically said they're not going to play d4. I recommend knight c6 at this point, regardless of what your open Sicilian opening preferences. Because at this point, they've declared that they're going to be playing a closed Sicilian type of structure. What they're trying to do at this point, if they're sophisticated, is they're trying to play a Roy Lopez type position, kind of without all the theory. So they're hoping that somewhere down the line you're going to have to play e5, and we're going to have a position that we could have reached out of a Italian game, or that we could have reached out of a Roy Lopez. And definitely at some point you're going to be tempted to play e5, because what their next move should be pawn to c3, immediately putting pressure on the idea of playing pawn to d4 and gaining that pawn duo in the middle of the board. And this is going to make black want to play e5 at some point when that idea becomes kind of irresistible. Okay, so this is the concept that sophisticated players are going to try. They're going to try pawn to c3. Now, of course, the unsophisticated crowd is going to play something like knight c3 or castles, in which case black just has a super comfortable game. You can continue with normal closed Sicilian type moves And actually, you're going to get a pretty big advantage eventually. Like, you're going to play bishop g4, get rid of this light squared bishop, you're going to castle, you're going to play rook b8, and eventually you're going to play b5, b4, and black is going to be really, really comfortable. This isn't going to be a great position for white. This is actually probably slight edge black, just the way the plans line up, because you've basically put a whole bunch of hardware in the way of black's pawn advance, and you're going to do all this advancing on the queen side with tempo now. So you're going to be gaining tons and tons of time breaking through on this queen side and gaining an advantage this way. And everything's going to go pretty well. So c3 is kind of the respected move, and the game that we're following here is Timofeev versus Kasparov, played in Moscow in 2004. That game continued with g6, and then we have castles kingside, and then we have bishop g7, we have bishop to b3, and then we have castles. So clearly, the first thing that has to happen is before d4 is a serious threat, e4 needs to be defended. So that's why rook e1. And then Kasparov is saying, okay, fine, you're going to play something like d4, I get that, but I'm going to play b5, I'm going to expand on my queen side really, really rapidly, and I'm going to take full advantage of the fact that you're just not doing anything over there. So a3, a5, just expanding really quickly. h3, that's to prevent bishop g4. So this is one of the cute things about the closed Sicilian structure. If we do get rid of this bishop, it really does seem to help out black a lot more than it helps out white. It loosens up white's grip on the center of the board, but it also makes it easier for black to operate on the queen side. Black has a little less space than white in these closed Sicilian positions, and getting rid of that light squared bishop is a huge deal. We're left with just the super strong long diagonal bishop, and we have easy access for all of our major pieces to get the squares they need to defend. This light squared bishop doesn't ever really seem to have a square that it can land on that isn't in the way of something. So it's really nice to kind of get rid of it. So h3 is a really cute move to just prevent getting rid of this light squared bishop. And then in my personal experience, once they have played h3 and prevented you from exchanging this bishop will typically find a home on the a6 square. This is usually where I end up developing it, trying to aim at the brand new weakness on d3. But of course, it doesn't always end up there. It just depends on what happens in the game, and it depends on how the game develops. Actually, in this particular game, this bishop did end up eventually going to d7, but that was after a knight maneuver. So you'll see what happened exactly in this game. So it went knight d7, bishop e3, a4, gaining that space on the queen side, knight going to b6. The idea is that Kasparov knows that d4 will happen, and when it does, he wants to be able to plant a knight on the c4 square, and he will declare that he has some sort of advantage. So knight d2, and now he finally plays e5, but he's, like I said, he's getting ready. He can meet d4 with having good control over that c4 square. b4 got played, a takes b3, bishop takes b3, and now bishop to d7, just getting that bishop out of the way. a6 would no longer be a good square. It's being blocked by the b-pawn. Can't push it to b4 and make a6 awesome, so bishop d7 is a pretty good way to just get the bishop kind of out of the way. So queen c2, and then we have rook a6, rook eb1, queen a8, knight a5, going after these light squares, queen c6, and I think already Kasparov has a pretty sizable advantage. This bishop on a2 is completely trapped, and that's kind of what happens when black is allowed to advance these queenside pawns. It's the structures look similar to a Ruy Lopez, but it's not quite a Ruy Lopez. We are advancing our queenside pawns in a slightly different way, and white's pieces tend to get pushed back in a slightly different way. So in this case, this position is probably already just somewhere between slight edge to major advantage black, and Kasparov went on to prove that in pretty short order. Bishop b6, rook b6. These exchanges got played. White had to try to get his bishop out. He got his bishop out, but now black gets to go after the remaining white weaknesses, which he does very accurately and very decisively. Presses his advantage until he finally turns it into a win. After queen c3, this was just basically a winning position for black. Basically game over. So anyways, moving on from this Timofeev versus Kasparov game in Russia in 2004, other options that they have available to them. So after, we'll say, knight f6, it is actually possible for them to play the move pawn to e5. And I wouldn't be too worried about this. What I would recommend is just taking. And then, of course, there is that double attack on the f7 square, so I would recommend e6 just to cover that. And then they've got a couple different options here, but the main rejoiner that I would just urge you to remember is just the move queen c7, and then you can also just play either bishop e7 or bishop d6, followed by castles, and black should achieve total equality without too much of a fight. So there's a couple lines where you would play queen c7. So for example, with castles, you would play a6 to prevent bishop e5, a4, then queen c7. This should be complete equality. Another situation where you would play queen c7 would be like queen f3. You would just play queen c7 immediately. Bishop b5 check, knight on b to d7. And then after a series of a couple of exchanges, this should lead to complete equality for black as well. So then the only line where you wouldn't play queen c7 right away, we can call the main line, would be something like maybe queen e2. And then we would play, we would follow what Sicilian did in this position against Nadala in the Czech Republic in 2012. We would just continue with bishop d6, and then a6, and now queen c7. So we would play bishop d6 first, and then queen c7. But basically, the same idea. After bishop b2, we would castle, and we should achieve total equality here, but if not, a little bit better for black. So anyway, so that's how you face this bishop c4 line, where white just kind of tries to, hang out and do nothing, and that's basically what we would do against it. We would just kind of follow in Kasparov's footsteps and play the opening the way he played it. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you learned something new about chess, and I hope you learned some ideas that you can use in your own games. Thank you very much for watching.